I tell you what, guys, things just keep getting weirder. Did you read the story about Diego Medina? Diego Medina apparently in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. There's an amusement park up there, and last weekend they didn't let details of this out until yesterday. But last weekend, apparently, he was found dead in a women's bathroom in the amusement park. He had come in on a back road to get up to the amusement park, because in this amusement park they usually bring people up to it. So he'd come in on a back road and had all sorts of gear on. He was dressed like he looked like a SWAT team type person with patches that made him look like law enforcement. And then he had an AR-15, the devil of all things, sitting on his on a sink. He was found in a stall, and this is where it gets really weird. It was an apparent self-inflicted gun wound. I'm not sure that they've actually released the full coroner's report. That's kind of like the initial observation. But apparently he committed suicide. He had bombs, fake bombs, grenades, fake grenades, and was dressed in all this SWAT gear. And he had written on the stall, "I'm not a killer. I just wanted to get to the caves." I think that's what he said in, let me just double check that. Yeah, he said, "I'm not a killer. I just want to get into the caves." I can't pretend to ever understand what goes on in the minds of people who are heading out to commit these types of acts. The implicated act that he was going to commit was another mass shooting with bombs and other things, and then he just so happened to take his life alone instead and leave a message on the door that said, "I'm not a killer, I just want to get into the caves." Something is very strange about this whole incident, though. I can't quite put my finger on it, but like I said, I can't get into the heads of these people, and I know that there's a lot of people out there thinking that this is another government asset of some sort that went haywire. Who knows? There are some weird things, though, that are going on. I mean, this incident reminds me, again, of the Alaskan Airlines pilot who shut off the plane's engines that got him turned back on, and said, after he was arrested, "I was tripping on shrooms. I just wanted to wake up from the dream. So I thought by crashing the plane, I'd wake up faster." I mean, this is crazy business. I guess these people could be deemed crazy. It's hard to speculate in this case because it is an ongoing investigation. And for all we know, it could have been some sort of staged murder plot. Or it could be something far more cynical. It could be, just the fact that this guy was going through something and decided not to take a bunch of people with him, which I'm sure we can all appreciate. But this incident is kind of interesting. Reading the news stories on it, it seems like now it's not just the AR-15 that's the bad guy. Any semi-automatic weapon is the bad guy, and then on top of that, they're getting into, well, he was dressed in body armor, he had goggles, he had a helmet. And so, it starts to pull into question, as these freak incidents continue, because I would say they're pretty freaky incidents. Like, that is just highly unusual. But as these freak incidents continue, the narrative is going to start pushing the vests that these guys are wearing, the helmets that these guys are wearing, is part of the problem. Now, in my experience, if somebody went out in the past, and this happens almost every day, you look at cities like Chicago or, New York City, there's stabbings all the time, right? And we don't go around saying, "Oh, we have a knife problem," and pull everybody's kitchen knives from them. But in incidences like this, all of a sudden now we have a body armor problem, and we've got an AR-15 problem, and we have a semi-automatic problem. Even, apparently, we've got a pipe bomb problem. Of course, those are illegal anyway. I mean, they should be. But my point is that, the narrative starts focusing on these things. And I'm more curious as to, what the heck? The message that this guy left, how he left himself. The last guy left himself in a dumpster. Well, it was a recycling container, but just weird places, and that one, kind of makes sense. I guess he took some running trails from where he parked his car and knew where those containers were and was probably hiding in them. The pressure of hearing sirens and stuff probably did that one in. Airplane pilot, but these kind of off the wall occurrences seem to be happening more and more, and to me, the real problem isn't what they're wearing. It's not the weapons that they're carrying. It's not the kitchen knives. What it is there's something mentally triggering these people. I mean, this guy had no evidence beforehand of planning to commit any atrocity. He apparently had ghost guns. That was the other thing, is ghost guns. He apparently had, ghost guns with him. And he, when they searched his house, there have been no reports of him having anything to build these ghost guns or anybody knowing about these ghost guns beforehand. I mean, it really kind of seems like this particular situation may have not even been a lone situation. Maybe there were other people involved because there was nothing leading up to it on this particular person's side that said he even had access to these things or that he was even thinking this way. I mean, he would have had to swipe everything. And then the only message he left, no manifesto, nothing other than, I'm not a killer. I just wanted to get into the caves. It's like a riddle of some sort. Something weird is going on. Something definitely drastic. And like I said, it's not what they're wearing. It's not the weapons they're carrying. There's an underlying issue here. I'd be curious to know from his autopsy if there were any drugs involved, any medications involved. And I'm not saying that medications necessarily cause these things, but I would be, again, curious to know with each of these cases, what was involved, because that is the problem. The mental problem. But when you look across our country right now, I see this at many different scales. I was reading the other day and looking at pictures of CVS stores in Washington, D.C. When you walk into a CVS store in Washington, D.C., and you want to buy a product, even if it's toilet paper, what you see is a picture on the shelf. You don't actually see the product. And then you have to get help to get the product because crime has gotten so bad. What triggers people to break windows and just go in and steal things? With no, it's like people are missing any form of consciousness, right? They have no understanding of right versus wrong. And this is an accelerating problem. This is why crime is ticking up. In addition to, we wanted to defund the police. That kind of helps crime move forward a little bit. But the underlying issue that I see that's happening, I mean, how blatant these things have gotten, how out of control these things have gotten, is there seems to be a complete mental disconnect of right and wrong. There seems to be, when you look at serial killers, for example, they aren't able to process certain thoughts and feelings that make, which for many of us make us human, right? But you're starting to see that on a wide scale. And I think that's where you're seeing a lot of this increase in crime. You're starting to see a lot of this increase in shootings or potential shootings or weird things happening with people in bathroom stalls. And it makes you wonder, is this, what is happening with the evolution of society? Is it, the education? Is it the particular agendas of people, or could it be, things that go back to things that we're putting in our body? We know that from a lot of research that's come out in recent years, we know that a lot of the foods that we eat that are filled with all sorts of toxins impact us more than just our health. They impact us mentally. They impact us in many different ways. So it makes you wonder if there are other things that we're putting into our body that could be impacting us negatively. I mean, there's something something's not right. When you have this much crime, this much blatant crime, gang shootings, these things have been spiraling out of control. If you look across the news spectrum, media, there's more and more and more of it. It quickly becomes a dialogue of people pointing out body armor and things that they're pointing out to be the cause, but that's not the cause. Those are things that people have picked up that they're utilizing. The underlying cause is something much bigger, and that's what we need to get to the bottom of. I mean, that's the big question that nobody's answering, and it'd be fascinating to see somebody who has a doctoral degree, because I don't, who can go in and really do an in-depth study on, the human psyche and what could be turning off these feelings that make us human beings, that make us sympathize, that make us understand right from wrong, that make us that put us in a perspective that makes us good citizens for our society. I mean, this could be a generational trend. It could be a generational trend. Maybe there are psychological factors, because a lot of young people, they can't get, jobs to be able to afford anything. I mean, the cost of living has gone through the roof. There are more people starving today than there ever have. And I think that desperation does feed into that. I think that, when you look at some of these third world countries where you have terrorists, a lot of that has been fed by desperation. But then there's a lot of that has been exacerbated intentionally through uses of medications and other things to alter the way that people think and to remove, the thoughts that keep people from doing terrible, terrible things. And it takes a lot, I think, to push somebody to the point where they want to take somebody else's life, a lot of other people's lives, and then their own. I mean, that's just not something that is normal for you and I to think about. I mean, that's not something that we could even comprehend on a daily basis. So to see that happening over and over again, to see people breaking into stores, to see people have a complete disregard for others and for themselves is not a normal situation. And I wish that instead of us focusing on, what type of helmet somebody was wearing, what type of body armor they had, whether or not they had ghost guns, none of that would make a difference. You can take all of that out of society and they're going to pick up a butter knife. Nothing is going to stop somebody from making a pipe bomb. I mean, that's the reality of it. The problem that we're facing is much deeper than that. And it could be something that is widespread. I don't think that at any point in time throughout history have we been so fascinated with putting foreign substances in our bodies and not thinking through the consequences of doing that. And I'm not saying all things are evil. I'm not saying all vaccines are bad. I'm just saying that we've reached this point in society where it doesn't matter if a food has chemical in it. If it tastes good, I'm going to eat it. It doesn't matter what's in something. If I think it's, the right thing to do, I'm just going to, if I think it's going to make me healthy, I'm going to inject it into my arm. None of those things are healthy for us. We know that drugs are bad. We know that, things like alcohol are poison to us, but we don't really think about all these other things that are accepted on a daily basis and what their long-term impacts could possibly be. That's my theory, is that I think it has something to do with something that I mean, for the human mind to not have sympathy, for it to not have, care, for it to have a complete disregard for others is not, in my perspective, human. But then, again, you look back over the ages and generationally, we've had situations where societies collapsed, the Roman Empire collapsed, and all of that has to start somewhere. And most of that is a generational trend that starts with people being desperate, people getting mentally shut down in other ways. It's fascinating to think about, but this situation in particular was Very strange. And I hate talking about these things. I realize that they've been filling up our news lately. But I also want to have a conversation about it and see what you guys think about it, and just see, what direction are we headed here, and what can we do to, if we can, turn things around. We might not be able to. It has been getting worse and worse year over year. We are seeing worse things happening now than, the desperations that started to occur during COVID. We're just seeing these things kind of continue in a spiral. So if there is nothing we can do about it, then what do we do for ourselves and our families, and our communities, our networks? What do we do to protect those around us, and not just protect them from those people, but protect their thoughts from becoming like that? I mean, that's an important part of this too, is, how do you protect your loved ones from entering this spiral that so many people have entered? Be curious to know what you guys think.